Hello YouTube! Today on the Naughty Librarian I am doing my September wrap-up. So today is the day my cat decided he wanted to be nice to me and he's purring and he wants to be held. It's very rare that he likes me, so I'm like taking full advantage of all the kitty love I can have right now. In the month of September I read 13 books because I am a machine and I kept reading them. Like, it was bonkers. Also, it was Smutty September, and I read a fair amount of Smutty books, so I was really proud of myself. I hit all my reading goals. I think I pretty much stuck to my TBR list, like, really well, and I added some in. So, like, I did a good job this month. Yay, me! Cagney. Okay, I think he's lost interest in me. Hold on. Ah! Alright. Well, he was nice to me for a few minutes, and then he lost interest in me altogether. So anyway, 13 books this month. That's pretty, like, outstanding. And I would say I think almost all of them were very good. There were exceptions, of course, because there always is. But anyway, let's just get into the books I read. First off, I read A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole. This is a sequel to A Princess in Theory. I really like Alyssa Cole's, like, comedic timing. She's always really funny. She, like, hits those notes. It makes me laugh. I laughed out loud a couple times during this. This is about Portia, and you were introduced to her in A Princess in Theory. She's kind of the well-meaning but screw-up friend, and she wants to not be the screw-up friend anymore. So she's, like, on a mission to, like, get better at life. And so part of that is taking a, like, an internship to learn sword making in Scotland. And she meets her boss, Tavish Mackenzie, who is, of course, like a sexy silver fox sword-making, sword-wielding dude in Scotland. So, I mean, like, what's not to be interested in? There were some smutty bits in it, but only like a couple, like, honestly. There wasn't that much smut in it. It was a really slow burn. I would say that this might not be necessarily a romance. I would say it's more women's literature because it's more about the main character Portia, like, growing as a woman. Like, a romance is part of that, but it's not, like, the main focus of it. So it was, like, a little different than what I thought I was gonna get. It still resonated with me because I really enjoyed the writing style. I continued on with my Tessa Dare binge this month. I read 2 novellas and 1 novel. And actually, these were 3 books that, like, I had a lot of feelings about, surprisingly. To start things off, I have Once Upon a Winter's Eve. This is a novella. It takes place all in the course of one night. And that's exactly why I don't think this works as a novella. Like, I really think it shot itself in the foot by having it all occur in one night because all of the character development that happens is completely unbelievable. It's like, there's no way, like, this all would have been resolved in a few hours. It made no sense. Like, it lost me completely. And it sucks because it's Tessa Dare and I love her, but I'm like, I don't like this that much. The thing is, I really think if this was a, like, full-length book and they gave, like, more time to breathe between events, like, this actually could have been really good because it had a lot of potential. Homeboy fucked her over, like, bad. Like, I don't see her, like, just getting back together with him right away. This really needed some time to simmer. Like, I feel like if it was over the course of, like, a week or two, he had to earn back her trust, and then eventually, they banged each other, like, it would have made sense. This does not make sense as a novella. Next, I read A Lady by Midnight. And the deal with this one is that it would have worked better as a novella, not a full-length novel. So, like, I wanted to switch those two. This is between Kate and Corporal Thorne, and Kate is, like, basically kind of a shy music teacher, and she has, like, a port wine birthmark on her face, so she, you know, she's shy. And then Corporal Thorne is, like, a gruff corporal military guy, and they get together in this. I was really, really interested in this story for a long time because it's between 2 characters that we had been meeting in all the rest of the books of the series, and they were characters I really wanted to get together. I was shipping them so hard, and finally they have their own book. But when they had their own book, I realized how boring they were as characters. So I think they worked much better as side characters. When it was their time to shine, I was just like, their personalities weren't wowing me. It's like, it has its moments, it has some laughs, it has a cute puppy in it. I will say the one part I really liked, they introduced this new family called the Gramercys. And Harriet Gramercy is, like, my favorite character. I want her to have, like, a side book where she goes off on adventures and like solves crimes or something. Like, she's so cool. She's basically like a badass lesbian, and I was so into her. She was the best part of this book. But overall, I was like, this could have been a novella and it would have been okay. Last up, I read Beauty and the Blacksmith. This is a novella and it works perfect as a novella. So like, that cleared up my problem. Because I feel like as a whole novel, this would have been really boring. So it was the perfect length. It's like 150 pages. It's super short. This is about Diana, and she's like basically the prettiest girl in town in Spindle Cove. And she kind of has a crush on the town blacksmith, Aaron Dawes, and they get together in this. So there's a lot of like hot blacksmith action in here, because I mean, the guy is literally surrounded by steam all day. Like, like obviously that's like lending itself to hot guy. And I will say, they do it on an anvil at one point, and I'm like, I am okay with all of this. I really liked Aaron. I thought he was adorable. He kind of has like adorable Big Brother vibes, where he's just like really like big brotherly to all the girls in town, which doesn't help him date really if he thinks of himself as a big brother to everybody. But doesn't think about himself as being a big brother to Diana, because he wants to do it with her, and then they do. And then they get together, and I was very happy for them. I really liked it. It was a perfect novella, sweet and to the point. Sticking with the historical romance theme, I also read No Earls Allowed by Shanna Galen. So this is a rare unicorn, because, spoiler alert, male virgin. The men are never virgins, and this is a male virgin and a female virgin, so they're both virgins. However, like, the guy in this, like, he is the most unvirgin-y virgin that ever virgined, because he has experience with like literally everything else except for actual sex. So like basically he's like mouth-fuck this town. This is about Juliana, and she is running kind of a downtrodden boys orphanage. And then Neil Raxel comes home from the war, and he is trying to figure out what to do with his life, and he's just like, lady, you are not doing things okay. Like, your boys are animals. Like, get this going. It had issues. Like, it wasn't a great book, but it was okay because it had adorable kids in it, so it's like, how bad could it be? Juliana is just like an idiot. Like, I'm just gonna say it. She puts herself in these situations where like there is honestly nothing she could do to help the situation, but she still needs to insert herself in it. It's like, oh, one of the kids got kidnapped and we're gonna go talk to the kidnapper, and she insists on going with. And it's just like, girl, what are you going to do besides be in the way? Like, these are kidnappers. They're probably okay with raping people. They're probably okay with beating people up. And you're like, I need to be there. It's like, girl, go sit down. Like, you need to think about what you did. Being stubborn doesn't make you a strong person. It makes you a stupid person. So, I wanted to like this a lot more than I did. But it was, like, overall okay. It wasn't the best. It was like average historical romance. Still in that historical romance kick, I read The Luckiest Lady in London by Sherry Thomas. I didn't like this. I wanted to. I wanted to like it, but like it's not very good. This is a story of Felix and Louisa. Louisa is basically husband hunting because she has a sister who has epilepsy. So she needs to find some rich guy to marry so she can take care of all of her sisters and everything. And so she like has like the wonder bra of all wonder bras, because she has little boobs, but she makes them look huge, and she's like out hunting for a dude, and she like puts all this effort into it. And then she meets Lord Felix, Felix Raxel. And he is like an asshole. Like, he is like the epitome of like, oh no, I have a tragic backstory, so I get to treat everybody cruelly forever and it's okay because you'll forgive me. It's like, no. You don't get to be an asshole because like your mom was mean to you. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you can be sad about it, but it doesn't mean you get to be a dick. And that was the biggest problem with this. Felix is fucking cruel to Louisa at points. Like, cruel. Not grumpy or mean or maybe callous. No, he's cruel. And like, I was not feeling their relationship at all. I was like, this poor girl. Like, girl, you were in the trap. You need to get out. Yeah, I had problems with it. Moving on to contemporary romance, and all-around adorableness is Royally Matched by Emma Chase. I love this series so much. I realize it's super sappy. It's like a super sappy romantic comedy, but it's like my brand of sap. Like, this is the sap I like so much. It's really funny, it's really smutty, it's got like everything I want in it. Basic plot here is that Henry is, he was the younger son and his older brother abdicated. So basically now he's in line to be king and he is not prepared at all. He's like just falling apart basically because he misses his old life where he was like the rake with a heart of gold and he would go out and party all the time. So how he like fixes this, he's like, I got it, reality dating show. Who wants to marry a prince? Where basically a bunch of, you know, random blue bloods show up and they're all vying for his hand in marriage. It's all of The Bachelor. However, he does not fall in love with any of the contestants because he falls in love with the sister of one of the contestants, Sarah Tightbottom. I know, her name is Tightbottom. Like, it's stupid, but it's my brand of sap and I think it's funny. What I really, really liked about this book in particular is that we didn't just see them like fall in love or fall in lust, like they fell into friendship. Like I feel by the end of the book, like they're genuinely best friends and that's where the relationship grew out of, which is like totally my favorite thing. And yeah, it's cute, it's funny, it's smutty and delightful. It's like my little book cupcake. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. Another great contemporary this month was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong. This book is like the physical manifestation of the emotion squeeze. It's so adorable. I love it so much. 5 out of 5 will recommend to anybody who will listen to me. It's so good. This is about Stella and Michael. Stella is a bookish kind of mathematician woman, and she also has Asperger's, so she's on the autism spectrum. So she's trying to figure out sex and get better at it. So she hires an escort, and his name is Michael, and he's like the sexiest of sexy Asian dudes in the world, apparently. It's kind of like a gender-swapped Pretty Woman, and like, I'm so into it. It has great autism representation. I do believe the author is also on the spectrum, so it's kind of, I feel like, you know, writing what you know. She's very high-functioning, so it's like the mindset of like knowing you're strange compared to other people, but still wanting the same things, like the connection, the friendship, the love, but not knowing how to get it because you know that you're weirder than everyone else. So it's a really interesting like character study to go into. And then also like there's like a sexy guy who's like a prostitute kind of, but then like, you know, prostitute with a heart of gold, and then like they fall in love for real. I'm like all into this. I'm so into it. It's so good. Like I could talk your guys' ears off forever, but just trust me, it's amazing. Alright, so that concludes my smutty September picks. I also read like 5 more books that were just like all over the place. Finally read Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Oh, this is so good. It's such an in-depth, juicy character study. And it like blew my mind because the problems I had with like V.E. Schwab books in general was that I never felt like I really got to know the characters because they always felt much more plot based. This is only character based. Like really not like a lot of stuff happens in this. It's all character based. And like I loved it every second of it. It's so good. Basic idea here is that what if you took like bad people, like, you know, morally gray people, and gave them superpowers? Nothing good happens. Like, it's just bad people with extra bad powers. Like, nothing good happens. In particular, we follow Eli and Victor, and they are college roommates, and then they figure out, like, the code to gaining supernatural abilities, becoming a superhero. They figure out how to do it. The idea is having a near-death experience where you're experiencing lots of pain and adrenaline all at the same time, combined with like an undeniable will to live. Like when you come back to life, your body will have adapted and developed an extraordinary ability. So basically they just keep trying to kill themselves for a while. To say this book is dark, it might be an understatement. It's very dark. It's very much an arch enemy story. Victor and Eli, they start off as friends, they do not end as friends. And it's basically just seeing what happens when bad people, morally gray people, have superpowers. And yeah, it's basically watching supervillains fight each other, and I was, oh my gosh, it's so good. Like, it's, just read this. I can't even get into it. It's so good. I also read Skye in the Deep by Adrian Young. This is like generic Viking drama. It's about a girl named Aelin, and she's a Viking. And then one day on the battlefield, she's fighting, and then she runs into her brother. And the thing is, she thought her brother died 5 years ago. Turns out, nope, he's living with the enemy clan now. Whoopsie doodles. She goes to look for him. She ends up in the enemy camp. Like kind of a brother-sister story. She's growing as a person. And how can these two races of people who are very much exactly the same in many ways come together and stop trying to murder each other all the time? This is a debut book, and it does feel like a debut book in certain ways because it is very tropey. Like, it relies, I would say, almost too much on the tropes it's using. However, it's very well written. Like, if this is a debut, like, I don't want to see the next thing that Adrian Young writes because, oh, like, this is emotionally impactful. Like, it really got me in the feels. Even if I didn't think, like, it's the most, like, amazing story in general. Even if it does, like, rely too heavily on tropes, like, that's okay. Tropes exist because that's what everything relies on. It's just really well written. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Viking aspects. They don't read enough things about Vikings, so it was really fun. It's bloody, it's action-packed, it's great. It's fun. I liked it a lot. It might not be the most original, interesting story, but it is well written. I also read The Smoke Thieves by Sally Green. It's really hard to explain what this book is about. This is told from 5 perspectives, so you can't really say what the book's about because the book is about 5 different things. It's 5 different stories, and then they all kind of connect at the end. So you can't really describe the plot because it's too many plots. I'll admit, that kind of threw me out of the story sometimes, having so many perspectives. There's some I liked better than others. I really liked Catherine's perspective. She is a princess who is basically getting married off to some prince she doesn't know. But, like, I liked her, like, thought process. She's like, how do I make myself, like, basically so I can't be murdered? Oh, I should get, like, the peasants and all the other people in this country to really love me. Because if they like me, I got their support. And there's a lot more of them than there are noble people. So, like, the way she thinks about things, I think she's really cutting, and I think she's going to have a really interesting character arc going forward. Then there's March, and he's basically a servant. He comes from this people that were conquered, and he's kind of like one of the last remaining vestiges of this people. And I didn't really like March. I felt like he's very gullible. Like, he just believes everything people tell him. He never goes in search of his own answers to things, so he's, like, very easily persuaded one way or whatever way people want him to think. I didn't really like him that much. I don't really want to read it. I hope he doesn't, like, continue narrating in the future, because his parts were boring. There is Ambrose, who is basically a knight in shining armor. He's Catherine's guard, and he is just knight in shining armor all the time. Also not that interesting to read from. There is Tash, who's like a 13-year-old demon hunter, and I would have read the whole book just from her perspective. I love her. She's, like, kind of foul-mouthed demon hunter girl, and she's really cool. I liked her a lot. Lastly, there's Edion, who is basically the, like, textbook definition of hot mess. Like, he is just a disaster waiting to happen all the time. And I do like his plot points because he, like, shamelessly flirts with March, and March gets very uncomfortable. But, ooh, I don't know what to do with his attention, and it's adorable, so I just want to keep reading about that, honestly. That'd be great. The thing in particular about Smoke Thieves that I found was really interesting was the tone in general. Because I know this is marketed as YA, but it's not a YA book. Like, teens could read it, but I feel like the overall theme is very adult. Like, it does not feel like it's made for a teen audience at all. It's, like, how dark it gets, like, into the torture that people endure in this. It's adult. Like, it's like Game of Thrones level. Like, I would not say, I think this is misrepresented because this is an adult book. Like, this is not a teen book. You can find it in the YA section, but it shouldn't be there. I also read Noir by Christopher Moore. Christopher Moore is an author I've loved for a long time. I've read, like, almost all of his books. They're always, like, comedies, they're paranormal, they're satirical, they're really funny. And so when I found out he was writing one about, like, the Roswell crash and aliens and, like, Men in Black, I was all about it. Now, the problem is, for a book that's supposed to be about aliens, there's very little aliens in it. Like, there's, like, you maybe see one alien and it's in, like, the end of the book, but the vast majority of this book has nothing to do with aliens. So I felt like kind of, like, this was misrepresented. because it was fun. It was fun. It's not his best work though, because I didn't get what I thought I was supposed to get from the blurb, from the descriptions of this book. That's not what it was. Was it a noir novel? Yes, it was a comedy noir novel. Definitely fit that bill. It had fun characters. They were all like rascals with a heart of gold, which is very much what Christopher Noir writes. That's like his bread and butter. So it had like things I liked, but overall it's not his best work. Lastly, I pulled up my big girl pants and I decided to read Bright We Burn. And I was scared to read this because it's historical fiction, but based on historical fact. So this is basically like the Vlad Dracul story, Vlad the Impaler, except Vlad is a girl in this book. And a lot of the things that were happening historically do happen in this book. And I mean, sorry, it's not really a spoiler because you could look it up on the internet and find out what happened to Vlad Dracul, but nothing good. So I'm like, oh gosh, it's gonna hurt. And it did. It hurt a lot. It was basically just like a whole book of killing characters I liked. So it was like, why are you doing me like this, Kirsten White? Why are you doing me like this? The whole series overall is some of the best writing I've ever read in my life. It's incredible. The deep like character study going on here is so fascinating, because characters aren't just one thing in this book. They have all these tangled up emotions about things. Like, you could love someone and at the same time hate their guts. And that's an okay thing, because that's a very complex human emotion that people feel. But you don't always see that in books. You see it as one way or the other. But in this one, it's both at the same time. In particular, Lada and Radu, because they're brother and sister. They've been on the opposite side of almost every conflict in the book. So where they both think the other is wrong, they both still are desperate for the other's attention and love, but they still hate them at the same time, so it's a very awkward, like, family reunion. But that's what I love about these books in particular, is like how deep the character study goes, where people have complex emotions, and like sometimes things are messy, and that's it's so good. I just read the whole gosh darn series. It's so good. I will warn you that book 3 hurts a lot. A lot it hurts, but it's worth it in the end because it's so good. So yeah, 13 books this month. I really plowed through them. I was determined. And I really wanted to read all the smutty books I said I was going to read, because if I didn't, like, I'd feel bad, considering I call this month Smutty September, and if I didn't read them, like, what was I doing with my life? Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books. If so, which ones are your favorites? Which ones are your least favorites? Do you have any recommendations for me for October? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!